Greg Bakun here. I've been talking for a while about how spooky, fun, and fascinating the Minneapolis trolley tours are, but now there's big news. The Candlelight Ghost Tours now begin at the historic Pillsbury Club, a beautifully restored haunted mansion once owned by Charles Pillsbury himself. Believe it or not, the interior is nearly 200 years older than the exterior. How is that possible? You'll have to come out and find out. Before or after your tour, stop by the on-site market featuring a curated collection of handmade goods, artisan crafts, and locally inspired treasures. Perfect for picking up a keepsake to remember your haunting adventure. You'll also find exclusive spooky merchandise from Tales of the Crypt and Elvira. Then, climb aboard the climate-controlled trolley as we travel through Minneapolis' haunted hotspots, uncovering ghost stories that locals would rather keep buried. The mansion is restored to perfection, and there is no better way to spend an evening. Visit MinneapolisTrolleyTours.com for tickets and more information.
The views expressed and the opinions given by the individual host, guest, random reptoid, or chupacabra may not necessarily reflect those of AM 950 Radio, its affiliates, or its sponsors. Now, it's time to step into the unknown. There are things people experience but never talk about. A shadow moving in the corner, flickering of the lights, a disembodied voice. We invite you to talk with us. Share your story, share your experience, because this isn't just your story. This is our story. This is GhostBox Radio with Greg Bakun.
And this is GhostBox Radio on AM 950, where every night we talk about the paranormal, ufology, Bigfoot, and so much more. My name is Greg Bakun. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. Welcome to February. I hope everyone had a fantastic January, and I hope this month is just as good for you. I'm really excited for tonight, as one of the things that if you've listened to the program before, you know that I have an affinity to the United Kingdom, especially the television. I've made it a big part of my life to collect and watch and write about and research and all that stuff. And I've, over the years, made a number of acquaintances and friends, and a gentleman I've known for quite a while, and I've known his work even longer than that, realized that he is also very much into the paranormal, a researcher of the paranormal, and I really wanted to bring him on for a number of reasons. He has written a number of books. He has researched, and you know, I honestly, even though I've investigated a little bit over there, and I'm going to tell you where when we talk to our guest, but the thing about that though is it different? Then do we approach things differently? Do we see things and look at paranormal differently in different parts of the world? And I think it's going to be a fascinating conversation. Dr. Paul Lee has written, I believe, 3 volumes of UK haunted hospitality, and we want to talk about that. We're going to talk about anything else that is on his mind when it comes to different paranormal locations and his area and all that good stuff. I am really looking forward to this. Dr. Paul Lee, welcome to GhostBox Radio.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Very glad to have you here as well. This has been years in the making, actually, hasn't it? Because
yes.
And yeah, folks, this is a great example of living in, across the pond from each other. It's not easy to align our schedules. It's just how it works. And I'm just glad. I'm so glad that we're able to make this work now. And, first off, I've known you from other areas of life. And because we kind of have an affinity for British television. I mean, it's television for you. To me, it's British television. But the thing is over time, and I had watched your tweets, and you would start talking about paranormal stuff, and I think that's where I was just like, my gosh, he's one of us. He's like me.
That sounds rather ominous.
Well, it is actually, as it happens. So paranormal studies and research, how long has that been with you?
I really don't know. I don't know where my interest in the paranormal came from. It might have something to do with the fact that I was born on Halloween itself. But my parents, my mum and dad, just were complete non-believers, 100%. Just they weren't interested at all. But they never stopped me from developing my own interest. And on my birthday and at Christmas time, I got lots of ghost, UFO, monster books and whatever. So although they didn't believe, they didn't dissuade me from following my own interest in the subject. But I don't know where my interest came from. One of my earliest memories was sitting on the front lawn in a blazing hot summer, reading the hardback Usborne book, the trilogy book of ghosts, UFOs, and monsters. I must have been about 7 or 8, perhaps, and just scaring myself witless with the stories. It has that great photograph of the ghostly shape at Newby Church in the northeast of England.
Yes.
And that's still stuck with me to this day, and I still find it terrifying. But that was one of my earliest memories, but I don't know where or how my interest in the paranormal came from.
It's almost like it's been with you your entire life, it seems like, to some degree.
It has, yes, but I don't know where it came from.
Yeah.
I really do not have a clue. But it's one of the more interesting facets of my hobbies, because I just love a good mystery, because anyone can add to it. If you've got a story that's set in stone and is, well, immutable, then there's not much you can do with it. History has been written. But with the paranormal, it's a completely unfinished book. Anyone can add to it. And in my case, what I've done is I've done my best to add to the stories, add to the research. Because if everything in life was known with certainty, it would be a pretty boring existence, I find. And that's why I like the paranormal so much, I think. And also because it's my birthday, and it feels like when I go out on Halloween and have a few drinks, everyone's celebrating my birthday.
Right. No, that's perfect. Now, I've had the opportunity to investigate a few places in the UK. One of them being in the area where Children of the Stone was made. Another,
Avebury, yes.
Yeah. The other, of all places, Paul, the other was Alexandra Palace.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, in the basement there. Have you ever been to Alexandra Palace?
I haven't, no, unfortunately. I'm on very limited means at the moment with regards to transport. I have to rely on buses and trains and my own feet. So a lot of places in the UK I've never visited, and unfortunately that's one of the places I haven't been to. One day though.
I've been fortunate enough to get in there and go around, and that place is like someday, and I've talked with them about this, is someday doing a full-fledged paranormal event there, because that would be, I mean, that place has so many nooks and crannies, and they keep talking about revitalization of the property, but it's yet to be seen. And it'd be great to go back up to the old BBC studios and do some stuff up there. But then my friend Steve, who's part of Kaleidoscope, and I can't remember the name of the town that's just outside of Birmingham. There's this hotel that he stayed at, and he's in the UK. He just stayed out there. He had talked about it was a haunted hotel. He asked to stay in the most haunted room. It's up on like the second or third floor, and he had nothing happen to him the entire night. And then the next day he's going through, because he took pictures the day before on his phone. He went through, and there's a picture of him in that same room. The picture of him is of him sleeping in his bed. Someone took a picture of him sleeping in his bed, and he's like, there's no way anyone could have gotten into this room. I don't know. That's kind of strange.
Right. Can you remember where this was?
I'll get you that information, because I could just ask Steve. It just kind of came to my head. But yes, absolutely. It was just, and you might, I could probably guarantee actually that if I knew the name of the hotel and I told it to you, you'd be like, oh yes, I know what that is.
Right. Okay. I'm just currently looking through my database. Was it in a town called Dudley?
It might have been. That sounds kind of familiar, actually.
Right. I'm just having a look. Was it the Station Hotel?
I don't I don't want to. I'll have to ask because I don't want to give you false information.
Okay, that's fine. It's just that's a very famous haunted hotel, but the area around Birmingham is full of little towns and villages. And the place is just awash with spectral reports. So it could be any one of them, to be honest.
Could be any of them. I'll get that back to you because once again, that's kind of one of the areas that you have written about is the UK haunted UK hospitality guide, and I mean, it's interesting that you chose that certain part of it. Why did you choose that part of the subject of paranormal to kind of write a trilogy of books?
Well, I've been collecting ghost stories from various locations for. This is my 11th year doing it, and I get a lot of information from books and magazines, off websites, and also from people and doing my own field research. And I was struggling for a topic for my next series of books. And a few years back, I was interviewed at the ASAP conference in Bath, where I had a really good time. And just before I was interviewed on stage, I thought, someone should really write guidebooks for the UK based on 3 criteria. You could do pubs and clubs, and then you could do hotels, bed and breakfast, Airbnbs and whatever. And the third one could be eateries like restaurants and coffee shops or whatever. And then that's what normally happens. I thought, well, if someone's going to do it, it's probably going to be me. So when I went on stage and had a chat with Christian Jensen Romer, I just mentioned this crackpot idea I'd had about 5 or 10 minutes beforehand on stage. And then I thought, well, I'm committed now. I've got to do it. So I started getting all the reports that I had and separate them into the various categories, pubs, hotels and eateries and whatever. And that took quite a while. And I've now got this 3-volume set to my name. So that's the genesis of it. But where the actual idea came from, like most things, I don't know. It just completely popped into my head. And started researching, and there it goes.
Maybe you were meant to write it then. Maybe that's the divine intervention or something telling you got to write about us.
Well, this isn't the first time this has happened. I've been doing a lot of heavy-duty research into the Titanic, for instance. And years ago, I was looking at some volumes from Lloyd's publications about shipping movements in 1912, and it had not been touched for decades, if ever. And I thought, someone should really sit down and go through this in great detail. And I realized soon afterwards that would be me. And that was a really arduous job. The ghost books weren't quite as arduous, though, because I had all the data collected. It didn't require multiple trips and taking photographs of pages of journals. But yeah, this is not the first, and it won't be the last time I've had a crazy idea and realized I've got to do it. No one else has, so I've got to do it.
Well, and that's also, folks, I think we've learned a lesson here. Don't say ideas out loud in public, or you're going to have to do them. I mean, that's just
absolutely yes. But I'm glad I did, because it was very informative and it was fun to do. And I learned a lot about the ghosts in the UK, and also some establishments' attitude towards ghosts. Some places didn't want to talk about them, whereas others just wouldn't shut up about their phantoms. So I say, if you're going to write a book, do it. You will learn a lot. It's very instructive, but don't rush it. Take your time and make it fun.
Now, when we get into the second segment here, and we're going to go to break in a couple minutes, but when we get into the second segment, I want to kind of get into the books more. But did you notice any sort of it was like pubs or hotels or restaurants, or one more had more haunted stories or ghost stories than the others, or were they pretty much the same across the board? Or
I think it was all due to the fact that I had more in the various categories than anything else. Like I had
sure, okay.
The number of haunted pubs is roughly the same as the number of haunted hotels I have. But I've got more details on the haunted hotel, so the book is quite a bit thicker. Eateries, which is restaurants, snack bars, coffee shops, tea rooms. There's even a milkshake bar in there, for goodness sake. Mm-hmm. That book is quite thinner because I didn't have as many premises to dwell on, and I didn't have much in the way of details for most of them. So that book is quite a bit thinner. And I thought, well, I've said I'm going to do a trilogy, so I am. I could have just stopped at volume 2, but I thought, no, I've got to finish it, even if the volume 3 is quite a thin volume compared to the first 2. But the first 2 are quite thick, and they're more like gazetteers than anything else. Most of them have just got a couple of lines about their ghosts. They're gleaned from books and personal information. And in most cases, I found that when contacting the places to find out more information, they didn't really want to speak about their ghosts. Only very rarely did they actually speak bushels of their phantoms. But I say that the books are gazetteers, and the quality of information varies from between a line or two to pages of stuff. Like the Mermaid Inn in Rye in Sussex and the famous Jamaica Inn in Bodmin Moor. There's a lot there because I've been able to talk to researchers, or the place have given me information sheets. On the other hand, there's places like the Ettington Park Hotel, which, if you've seen the 1960s Haunting, that was the exterior for it. And people have always said that's one of the most haunted hotels in the UK, if not the world.
Wow.
And I contacted them, and they sent me a very, very long information sheet listing all the ghosts. But there was a caveat to that. They say the place is now quiet. They haven't experienced anything for many years. So the book has got a mixture of ghosts that are dormant, some which are active, and some where I just don't know. But when people say the Ettington Park Hotel is one of those haunted in the UK, I sort of wag my finger and say, not anymore, it ain't.
Why don't we go ahead and do this? I want to go ahead and take our first break. When we come back, we're going to delve into the books. We're going to delve into more of the research that Dr. Paul is doing. And we're just going to keep this conversation going. Don't go anywhere. You're listening to GhostBox Radio on AM 950. Greg Bakun here. I've been talking for a while about how spooky, fun, and fascinating the Minneapolis trolley tours are, but now there's big news. The Candlelight Ghost Tours now begin at the historic Pillsbury Club, a beautifully restored haunted mansion once owned by Charles Pillsbury himself. Believe it or not, the interior is nearly 200 years older than the exterior. How is that possible? You'll have to come out and find out. Before or after your tour, stop by the on-site market featuring a curated collection of handmade goods, artisan crafts, and locally inspired treasures. Perfect for picking up a keepsake to remember your haunting adventure. You'll also find exclusive spooky merchandise from Tales of the Crypt and Elvira. Then, climb aboard the climate-controlled trolley as we travel through Minneapolis' haunted hotspots, uncovering ghost stories that locals would rather keep buried. The mansion is restored to perfection, and there is no better way to spend an evening. Visit MinneapolisTrolleyTours.com for tickets and more information. Have you ever met someone who not only can help you on a deep spiritual level, but also potentially change your life? Refined Divine is an extremely gifted psychic medium who travels the nation and lives right here in the Midwest. And she offers mediumship, mentorship, house and business parties, energy healing, palm readings, and so much more. Refined Divine has helped thousands, and she can help you.
Hi, this is Psychic Medium Deb. I cannot wait to hear from you. You can go to refineddivinepsychic.com.
Greg Bakun here. Like you, I love good, fresh, delicious food. So I want to tell you about this treasure in Roseville called Maverick's Real Roast Beef. Maverick's has the best roast beef sandwiches I've ever had. Made fresh every order. Add fries or onion rings dropped in the fryer when ordered, and you have a winning combination. Maverick's Real Roast Beef has a lot more than roast beef, so check out their website, mavericksbeef.com, or check out their restaurant on Lexington in Roseville. Join us for Ghost Stories and Beyond at Billy's Bar and Grill in Anoka, Wednesday, February 4th at 6:30 p.m. Join Char Savoy and me, Greg Bakun, as we explore a fascinating question. What happens to our pets in the afterlife? Have you had a pet make their presence known after they passed? We'll share stories, experiences, and open it up to the audience. Tickets are just $10, and yes, Billy has half-price burgers that night. Ghost Stories and Beyond, February 4th at Billy's in Anoka. And this Wednesday, I hope that you join us over at Billy's in Anoka for February's Ghost Stories and Beyond, which is going to be February 4th at Billy's downstairs as usual. What's really exciting about this is this month we're going to be talking about pets in the afterlife. One that, if you've listened to the program, you've heard me talk about many a times. And we want to hear other people's stories. We want to talk about, do we believe that such a thing is actually possible or not? You know where I stand with that. But once again, come on down. We've been having some really good-sized crowds coming out. It's been a lot of fun, a lot of interaction. We're all talking about our favorite thing, paranormal. Once again, it's going to be half-price burger night there. So you go down, get some good food, get some drinks, $10 admission to get in. And we will be talking about pets in the afterlife. That's Ghost Stories and Beyond. That is happening this Wednesday. Starts at 6:30 p.m., goes to about 8:30. It's going to be a lot of fun. Hope to see you there. We are talking with Dr. Paul Lee. We are talking about, amongst many things, UK paranormal, but we're talking about his books, UK Haunted Hospitality, and there's 3 volumes to it. And talking during the break with Dr. Paul Lee, the books are available through Amazon. Once again, I will put a link up on my page, ghostboxradio.com, Ghostbox Book Club, where you can go ahead and get those items yourself. And if you get it through my affiliated link, it's going to help the show directly. And for those who might be wondering, well, why would I want to get this if I'm in the U.S.? Because it's super interesting. That's why. It's really cool. Well worth the time to get it. Dr. Paul, where are you located in the UK?
I live in a very, very old town called King's Lynn in West Norfolk in England. It dates back to at least the 11th century and probably older. Roman and Saxon remains have been found by archaeologists. And there are a lot of buildings in the town which date back to, 12th, 13th century. So it is a very, very old town, and of course it is completely full of spooks. You can't walk down the high street without meeting a shop that's got at least one ghost in it. And I've written a book on the ghosts of King's Lynn and West Norfolk. And I think of all the books I've written, that is the one that I'm most proud of. It has a lot of old favourites, like Sandringham, the royal residence that they come to in December. And also a lot of places that people will not have heard of before. And some which I'm still researching to this very day. Like there's a very old RAF base called Bircham Newton, which is now a construction training site. And I'm still finding a way around the ghosts there. So it is not an open-ended. It is an open-ended story. It's not It's not a closed book. I'm still finding a way around.
There's something about, I think, what makes this, I think, so interesting to us in the U.S. is the fact that your history is so much longer than ours. Looking at the books, and I have up on Amazon right now the listing for UK Haunted Hospitality Volume 1, Pubs and Clubs. And you said this earlier in the program, last segment, you're like, some places don't want to know. They don't want to talk about it. Others are very open about it. I mean, I suppose a lot of these places, that's one of the things that they think draws people in is the fact that they're haunted, right?
That's right. And quite a few of the locations do ghost nights. They either liaise with external companies, fright night companies, or they do it themselves to bring in ghost hunters. And they do the usual plethora of activities, starting off late at night and going to the early morning. And sometimes exorbitant fees are charged, which I really have a great moral problem with personally.
Yeah.
Pubs I've found are, if you get the right person, they're very, very happy to chat about their ghosts. Either they're going to say, we've got no spooks here, or they will tell you a hell of a lot. But with hotels, it's slightly more different. They are more reluctant to talk about their spectral history. And quite a few have admitted that it's bad for business. I think they don't want people to wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning to find a ghostly monk bending over them and scaring them half to death. Whereas, of course, you don't get that in a pub. You might find that toilet cubicle door slamming by itself when you go to the lavatory, or you might find your glass sliding off a table, that kind of thing. But with hotels, a few people said, please don't mention us. It's really bad for business. But on the other hand, you'd get talking to other places and they just will not shut up about their phantoms. Like we stopped at the Brook Red Line Hotel in Colchester for my birthday a few years back. And normally I'm quite a timid person. It takes me quite a huge amount of energy to get my courage up to speak to people, not just about ghosts, but everything. But on this occasion, it was a matter of taking a deep breath, getting the courage up and going to the front desk and just asking the question. And not only did the receptionist have lots of stories, but the two other night porters did, and some of the cleaning staff did as well. And for the weekend that we were there, I was talking to as many members of staff as I could possibly find. And I unearthed some brand new tales that have never been published before. And that sort of spurred me on to actually finding out some more about the ghosts of the town. And I went to a pub called the Fox and Fiddler. And by that time, I was on a bit of a high, an adrenaline high. And I talked to the people at the staff, and they said, although it's quiet these days, we have had a few instances. And they recounted their own observations. So it does take quite a while for me to build up my courage, my enthusiasm. But once I do it and I get some great information, I'm very delighted with the results.
It sounds amazing, actually. And you go to some of these places, right? And like you just said, that they you can't get them to stop. There's probably some of these places that are proud of their haunted lineage as well. They're not worried or scared about it, but they're actually really proud about it, and down to the staff and whatnot.
It is, yeah. And also it's a matter of who you speak to, whether they've got interest in the paranormal or whether they are skeptical, or for religious reasons, maybe they don't want to speak about it. There are many locations that reply to my email saying, yes, we've got many ghosts here. And you try and fish for more information and you hear nothing back from them. So they're happy to admit, but they just don't want to say anything more. A lot of places say, yeah, drop by and have a drink. We'll have a chat about it. And I think, well, you're halfway across the country. How am I going to get there and have a chat with you? Like the Red Line that I mentioned, I emailed them years ago and they said, yes, we've got a few sightings with the TVs turn on at 3:00 in the morning, which we experienced when we were there, and a few other things. But just a few sentences was all I got from them, until I went in and talked to them face to face. And then I got a huge amount of information. But unfortunately, it was too late to put in volume 2. But it's part of an annex on my website, latest information. So, yeah, they are happy to talk about it with the proviso that you actually go in and have a chat with them. And, of course, if you go in and chat with them, then they expect you to buy a drink, a meal maybe. So maybe they're just fishing for custom. But there are places like the Red Line and the Jamaica and a few other places I think are quite genuine in what they say on their reports. But they're maybe not the most reliable of people when it comes to emailing or sending Facebook messages. You have to actually know someone who's been there, or you actually have to go in for yourself. Unfortunately, I've been to a few places where I have been in and chatted with them and received a lot of good information. On the other hand, you go into these places and say, I've received this information from years ago, and they say, sorry, it's quiet, haven't had anything for years. And that is the overwhelming story that I had when I was doing a survey a few years back. A lot of places were saying that they did have ghost stories, but in the last 3 or 4 years, they've dried up. And I was hearing that story time and time again. It's like something has happened in the last few years that is inhibiting ghostly materializations or activity. Places are just not as active now as they used to be. And I was hearing this dozens and dozens and dozens of times. And I was thinking, well, what the hell? Where have the ghosts gone? Are they extinct or are they dormant? Are they just waiting for the correct time to come out? Or like a battery that's using its energy, have they just faded away? Have they become extinct? I mean, perhaps even ghosts have a lifespan. Sounds silly, but if they have an energy source, maybe that just runs out over time quite naturally and they just don't appear anymore.
There's a question, that I get asked, and I'm sure you get this asked too, is like, especially I use like Spirit Box a lot when I go out on investigations, and people are like, why are we not hearing anything from, say, people who are like, Neanderthals and stuff like that? Well, first of all, I believe that we wouldn't be able to understand if we even did, or who knows that we're not. But the thing is, it's like, is there a cycle that maybe it doesn't mean that they disperse or anything, but maybe it just means that they no longer communicate, or like you said, there's maybe more another realm that they go off to. I mean, who knows?
Yeah, it could be. I mean, maybe the ghosts have lifespans that we just don't know about, and they do fade away, or maybe it requires something to regenerate them, reinvigorate them. Then they will come back. You probably know stories like myself of haunted locations where they've been quiet for decades, but with a change of staff or management, or even just the building being refurbished, that's enough to spur things on again. Yeah. So it's maybe the case of you're inputting energy, and that's what it needs to manifest again. But I was just struck by my survey with so many places, and say in the last few years, it has gone quiet, and they were all saying the same thing. I got very few responses from people saying it's still ongoing. And it looks to me like the manner of manifestation has changed quite a lot as well.
Oh.
Rather than being apparitions, like visible, recognizable figures, they're now becoming, I think the terminology these days is shadow figures.
Yeah.
People are seeing black, shadowy shapes, and they're normally seen out of the corner of the eye, so not full on. And again, when you hear that time and time again, you think, have the ghosts become different in their manifestations? Rather than being recognizable humanoid figures, are they now fading away, and this is their last gasp?
It's interesting. And also it'd be interesting, and this is like a whole other level of research that would have been very time consuming, but wondering, like, generally those places you gave the survey to, and they're like, oh, we've lost the amount of appearances of spirit. It'd be interesting to know if there was like a general amount, like a general time period that the majority of those spirits appeared at these locations, like were they all from like the 1800s or whatever. And then kind of wonder if is that a period that maybe that they start disappearing, if those from a certain time period, they've been around long enough and they start disappearing, if that makes any sense.
Yes. Well, I think it was a ghost hunter named Andrew Green in the UK. He's since passed away, sadly. He's a very nice bloke. And in one of his books, he talks about the ghost of an Elizabethan lady in a red dress. Mm-hmm. He said over time, the red dress became a pink dress, and then it became a white dress. And then gradually the ghost just stopped materializing until all that was left were just faint footsteps and the sound of a rustling silk skirt. So, and I think he mentioned this in the 1970s. I can't remember the location he was talking about, but here he was talking about the ghosts that are fading away, going from a red dress through to a white dress and then just disappearing completely. It's like a photograph that's fading away in the sunlight.
Really? That's interesting. That's really interesting. And it makes me wonder, are we talking intelligent, residual, both? I mean, it's an interesting conversation, really. I think I don't know.
Yes. It seems, well, from the survey that I've done, it's a mixture of both.
Okay.
But it seems to be predominantly a recording type mechanism in many cases. Very, very rarely do you hear about cases of sentient ghosts that react to people and converse with them. That's incredibly rare. So I think a lot of them, from my own memory, my own knowledge of these cases, it seems to be a matter of just recordings.
Yeah.
The stone tape so-called theory has been bandied around. Well, it isn't a theory because it's completely untestable, but it's more like a stone tape idea. Yeah. And that might have some validity to it if it could be scientifically verified and validated, which we can't do at the moment because we've got no theory to back it up. But they seem to be the majority of cases. And a lot of people have said that a lot of these recording type ghosts are residuals from the time that someone experienced an instant in their life that was harmful to them, like they were killed or they were tortured or they were harmed in some way, and that has imprinted upon the fabric of the building. But I say, if you look at these cases, the recordings, the playbacks are not of ghosts being killed. They're just ghosts doing mundane things, walking down corridors, opening doors, opening windows, turning back bed sheets. So it's not a matter of the energy being imprinted on the fabric of the building in the situation where someone has had a violent end, because these cases are completely mundane. So what is making these ghosts manifest when there is no kind of emotional impetus to do so in the first place?
I mean, my first thought would be something like timelines overlapping each other, and we're kind of
that's been mentioned quite a lot. Like time slips, that's been like in Bold Street in Liverpool, that's been mentioned quite a lot, but we just don't know. A lot of our knowledge of time itself in the physics sense is either complicated or it's complete codswallop, to be honest. So our knowledge of time and how to manipulate it is still at a primitive level. So if time slips do occur, we don't have any mechanism for how they could occur. Certainly we can't control time, and I sometimes wish we could, but no, it's not for us, maybe. Not
for us. Paul, why don't we go ahead and do this? I want to take our next break. When we come back, I want to talk more about these books. I want to talk about some of what Paul has personally, if he's experienced anything, I'd like to talk about that as well himself. Don't go anywhere. You're listening to GhostBox Radio on AM 950. Greg Bakun here. I've been talking for a while about how spooky, fun, and fascinating the Minneapolis trolley tours are, but now there's big news. The Candlelight Ghost Tours now begin at the historic Pillsbury Club, a beautifully restored haunted mansion once owned by Charles Pillsbury himself. Believe it or not, the interior is nearly 200 years older than the exterior. How is that possible? You'll have to come out and find out. Before or after your tour, stop by the on-site market featuring a curated collection of handmade goods, artisan crafts, and locally inspired treasures, perfect for picking up a keepsake to remember your haunting adventure. You'll also find exclusive spooky merchandise from Tales of the Crypt and Elvira. Then, climb aboard the climate-controlled trolley as we travel through Minneapolis' haunted hotspots, uncovering ghost stories that locals would rather keep buried. The mansion is restored to perfection, and there is no better way to spend an evening. Visit MinneapolisTrolleyTours.com for tickets and more information. Have you ever met someone who not only can help you on a deep spiritual level, but also potentially change your life? Refined Divine is an extremely gifted psychic medium who travels the nation and lives right here in the Midwest. And she offers mediumship, mentorship, house and business parties, energy healing, palm readings, and so much more. Refined Divine has helped thousands, and she can help you.
Hi, this is Psychic Medium Deb. I cannot wait to hear from you. You can go to refineddivinepsychic.com.
Greg Bakun here. I've told you about the out-of-the-world roast beef sandwiches at Maverick's Real Roast Beef, but I haven't told you about their Philly steak sandwiches, turkey, bacon, avocado sandwich, BLT, crispy chicken, fish sandwiches, brisket, or pulled pork. Okay, you get the idea. They make a lot of delicious food to the same standard as their famous roast beef sandwiches, and now I'm starving. I'm going to go to Maverick's Real Roast Beef off Lexington and Roseville, and you need to go too. Check out their menu at mavericksbeef.com. Step beyond the veil with a paranormal investigation in historic Anoka at Divine Lights. Join experienced investigators Char Savoy and me, Greg Bakun, for a 3-hour guided exploration using real paranormal tools and intuitive techniques. This isn't about chasing shadows. We listen, we connect, and we explore with respect. Space is limited, and each night is truly personal. Join us on Thursday, February 12th. Get tickets now, find Charvinity on Facebook, and click events. And remember, haunt local. And welcome back to GhostBox Radio on AM 950. My name is Greg Bakun. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. I am excited. We're having a great conversation with Dr. Paul Lee. He has written, he's a paranormal researcher, has written a number of books, 3 that we're talking about tonight. And quite frankly, we're just scratching the surface, is UK Haunted Hospitality. He's done 3 volumes of it. Once again, they are available if you want to pick it up locally in the U.S., available through Amazon. And I always say when there's Amazon books available, please consider going to my website, ghostboxradio.com, Ghostbox Book Club on the site. Use the affiliated link to get the books. It helps Ghostbox Radio directly. Really would appreciate that if you consider that. We, like I said, Paul, we've only scratched the surface, but I wanted to, because we're in our last segment and we have about 15 minutes or so, I wanted to ask you directly. First of all, you had mentioned in a past segment that some of these places charge astronomical fees to do ghost hunts and stuff, and public ghost hunts. And part of me was like, yeah, well, I'm not surprised. I mean, here it's generally the same as well. When we do events, we try not to raise up the prices because, like you, that's not great. But there are some places that are astronomical. So no difference there between our two countries. But how about you? Have you experienced anything that you would consider paranormal?
There have been a few instances. One that has really stuck in my memory since about 1994 or 1996 or so was when we did a ghost hunt at Dudley Castle in Birmingham. Now, in the grounds of the castle is a zoo, and part of that complex is a building called the Roundhouse. It was like a lodge, which was at the time was being used by a children's entertainer. And he'd had some weird experiences in the lodge and in the surrounding area. And we managed to get permission from the castle authorities to do an investigation at the castle and in the Roundhouse. And we all traipsed in. We put the equipment upstairs, which in those days was a tape recorder and a video camera, nothing as flashes today. And then we all wandered off downstairs, and I was sat in the chair that was closest to the staircase that led to the upstairs area. And for the next half hour or so, I was absolutely sure that something was going to come down those stairs. And I kept looking over my shoulder and looking up the stairs. It was very, very unnerving. And I can still feel like it was not like a terror, but just a feeling of unease. And I can feel that today recounting the story. I was sure that something was going to materialize on those stairs. And nothing it did as it happened. But the atmosphere just kept going up and up and up. And it's what I call a crescendo effect. Because eventually the atmosphere got so charged with expectation that it just faded away. It just stopped. The atmosphere completely lightened up. And I had to sleep after that for about 10 or 15 minutes. That's happened to me one other ghost hunt as well. You can feel the atmosphere building up, but nothing ever happens at the end of it. And at the end of it, it's like a balloon going pop. Whatever it was that might have been there has just completely gone. And I can still feel that unease recounting the story. Other things I've experienced, nothing very spectacular. Well, I wouldn't say nothing spectacular, but nothing that I would put money on as being paranormal. I've talked about the Colchester Hotel. Now, the ghost party piece is turning televisions on at 3:00 in the morning. That happened to us. We were woken up by the television full blast, and I knew the ghost's trick. And the next day I talked to the reception staff, and they confirmed that the televisions did not have timers. But they said that happens all the time to the televisions. And they say even the kettles come on and start boiling by themselves. And they've even said that televisions and radios and kettles come on even when they're not plugged in. And there was an incident on the last night that I just remembered. I was watching television at the time. My wife was next to me reading her book. And all of a sudden the room just became darker. And I said to my wife at the time, I said, have you just turned the light out? And she said, no, it's been out for ages. And I said, well, somehow the room has just become darker. The only source of light in the room was from the television and from the bathroom door, which was ajar at the time. But watching the first half of this documentary, the room was quite well lit, and then it just suddenly went dark. And I can't explain that. And it certainly wasn't the bedside lamp. And that has got me perplexed. There was another ghost hunt at the Bell Hotel in Thetford, which isn't too far from us, where we'd heard stories of the ghost liking to bang on the walls. And I was listening to some strange scratching noises coming from the wall, or sounds of dragging. And I couldn't quite figure it out. So I put my ear to the wall, and the exact second I did so, something hit the other side of the wall with so much force that I went flying back. I think I probably swore. So whatever it was knew where I'd put my head and when, because it happened straight away. And I just recoiled. It was that loud. It sounded like someone had hit the wall with a cricket bat. And other people have said the same things, including a couple of reception staff and maids, house servants. And that place is just spectrally supercharged. Apart from that, nothing much happened to us when we were there. But again, in my book on the ghosts of King's Lynn, I document all this. And there are dozens and dozens and dozens of instances there. So if you want to have a spooky time, there are 2 hotels to go to.
The loud bang, that's like it was like kind of goading you, wasn't it, to get your ear towards, and then bam.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, like just teasing, and then I'll show him. All right. Yeah, I recalled back. There were 2 other people in the room, and they heard it, and they saw the effect it had on me. I think I probably said some choice words because I wasn't quite expecting.
I would. And I'm curious, the room kind of going darker, and I've experienced this a couple times. Do you remember like what the because you said you were watching a documentary, do you remember what the subject of the documentary was at all or anything?
Yes, I do. It was an astronomical documentary. I think it had Brian Cox in it, and you could say that maybe the footage being shown went from a daytime scene to something in space, so it went from light to dark, and that made the whole room seem dark. But it wasn't. The whole room just suddenly went darker. It was almost like someone turning a dimmer switch, turning a control on a light switch, and that it went from reasonably well lit to quite dark. But it wasn't the documentary subject matter. It wasn't going from daytime to space. But I remember watching it. It was the Brian Cox thing.
The reason why I ask is because the experience I've had a couple of them, but one in particular was when I was in the studio at the station, and I had my board up, Adam, in the other room. The room that I was in, we were talking about stuff like World War II, Auschwitz, stuff like that, and the room got darker to the point that Adam was literally like, "I can't see you anymore," because there's a window between the walls. Yeah. And so I had wondered if possibly not so much the fact that like the documentary would affect the way the room looks because of the output of television, but more of like maybe the subject matter was something that was, bringing in spirits that they were just not happy about the subject, or it was sad to them or whatever. That just something I was wondering about. I don't know. I think the ghost, if it was ghostly, I can't think of any explanation, but if it was ghostly, maybe just doing it for attention. Or they don't like Brian Cox, yes, they wouldn't be the only people who don't like Brian Cox. I'm not a big fan of his either. But apart from these instances and the stories being told by the staff and the cleaning ladies, I found the hotel to be completely friendly. It was warm. Not only the staff were friendly, but the whole building, and it's very, very old. It goes back to at least the 16th century, if not older. The whole building just seemed friendly. It wasn't threatening in any way at all. And the Bell Inn in Thetford was about the same as well. There aren't very many places I walked into and felt a hostile atmosphere. But these 2 places, they were fine. And I think the ghost was just playing a trick on us. Yeah. Certainly could have been a lot more spectacular. I found out that in the room right next to ours, there used to be a rocking chair. And one night, a manager was staying there, and he woke up to find the chair rocking by itself. And then a woman appeared in the chair, asked him, "Are you all right?" And he said, probably very, very nervously, probably replied, "Yes." And then the woman said something like, "Oh, good," and vanished. And that was in the room next to ours, but years ago. And they also said the rocking chair is no longer in the room. They don't know where it is. So maybe they'd had more than one instance, and they were so alarmed of guests being frightened that they just hid the rocking chair.
certainly the staff has said that people have been so frightened they found them sleeping in the bar area at night because they wouldn't go back to their rooms. And I've heard from other hotels, like one in Hitchin, where staff doing their security round have found people sleeping in their cars because they wouldn't go into there's something happened that they would not talk about, but they prefer to sleep in their cars rather than go back to their room. And I've heard that quite a few times. The Bell in Thetford, I heard a story of someone who was so frightened that he left and found another bed and breakfast a few streets away. He wouldn't go back to the hotel, and he had to get a member of staff to go up to his room and pack his things and give them to him on the threshold of the hotel. He wouldn't even go in to collect his stuff the next day.
Wow. I mean, that's incredible. I love stories like that. I just want to go back real fast. We have about 4 minutes or so before we have to be done here. But the thing that you brought up and I think it's so important, especially for people who are starting off in paranormal or have their expectations of it. Spirit interaction does not have to be seeing an apparition or see something move. What happened to you at the castle, the unnerving, everything else, that's a huge piece of it. And I'm glad that you brought it up, because I don't think that people talk about that all that often. People are always looking for, oh, I saw a shadow figure, I saw this. But what you said, and you said it yourself, it has stuck with you ever since. And you could feel it when you're retelling the story. And that's something that I think is very important. Yeah.
There is a great expectation with ghost research into visual phenomenon.
Yes.
People always say, have you seen a ghost? And most people say, no, they haven't. But we've got more than one sense. And we've got internal senses, like psychological fear, like the one I mentioned at Dudley Castle.
Yes.
People have not so much tasted ghosts, but smelt ghosts. And it can range from perfume to really vile sense of decaying bodies. Touch is another sense. So when people say, have you ever seen a ghost? And you say, well, no, I haven't, but I've experienced olfactory sensations, then that's just as valid. Might not be as spectacular, but that can stick with people for years.
Yep.
And I can give an example of this. And it comes back to my King's Lynn ghost book. There's a closed down department store in town called Debenhams. And the number of people who said they smelled Parma violets when they were in there is quite impressive. I forget how many people, maybe 4 or 5, 6 people, all staff members. So they didn't see anything. They didn't see poltergeist phenomena, things flying off the shelves or whatever, or electrical interference. But a lot of them said that they smelt violets, particularly on the back staircase. And so to them, that was just as real and just almost as, well, I say tangible. It wasn't really tangible, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
That was almost as unnerving to them as seeing a phantom appearing in front of them. It stuck with them, even though it wasn't visual. So I say use all your senses, and also don't ignore the fact that it can be psychological as well, like the terror, the unease that you sometimes feel, which happened to me twice, where it builds up to such a level and it just evaporates, and it leaves you feeling quite calm afterwards, like you're expecting something to happen, and then when it doesn't, you feel relaxed and calm. That stays with you. So that's a good psychological indicator.
We have about a minute left. I just want to say when I used to stay in Birmingham, where Chris was living at the time, just up the road was a church that was 1,000 years old. And obviously one of the things I would love to do is go in there and, like you just said, using what's around me, the senses, to feel, nothing like trying to really contact me, but it's kind of residual in a sense too, isn't it? Because it's always been there. What a great experience. I just love that. I don't know. I want to go back so badly. So as we wrap up here, Paul, we got to get you back to talk more ghost stories if you're up for it. Okay.
Yes, sure. Yeah. I'd be delighted. Yes.
And I'd love to get you back in April to talk about the Titanic.
Absolutely. Yes. I'd be pleased to.
I would love that very much. Folks, you can get his books. They are the UK Haunted Hospitality, volumes 1 through 3. Get them on Amazon. Check it out through GhostBox Radio or however you get books. Just get the books. We're going to be back tomorrow. Everyone, once again, Paul, thank you very much.
Thank you. My pleasure.
We'll be back tomorrow. Everyone, have a fantastic night.
Thank you. Cheers.